Okay, everybody's on?
Yes.
Tim? Okay. It is now 2 minutes after 10 on Monday, August the 4th. And this is the Finance Committee's meeting. And some people are online, but I'd like to welcome everybody, and especially our new ex officio city council member, Trina Brown Hicks.
Thank you.
The people in attendance are myself, Bob Heffernan is online, Robin Davis, Kimberly Relier, Trina Brown Hicks, Mike Hogan is also online, Calvin J. Berth is here, and Carolyn Jones. So we have a quorum. And the first agenda item is to review the Finance Committee minutes from May 13th, 2025.
I do have one change
What is it?
on number 8, the audit process and federal audit requirements. When it lists Donovan Smith, it says funded in part by ARPA. It is not funded by ARPA.
I was wondering when I read that, I said ARPA funded. Thank you for that.
So other than that, are there any other comments to it? I was noting that the separate audit for such funding, federal funding, was mentioned and is included in the audit package.
Yep.
And is it okay to ask for a motion to approve with that one change?
I see no problem with it. I make a motion to accept.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I.
Okay. And the next item is a presentation of the draft form with representatives of our auditor, Zelenkowski and Axelrod, who are online.
So before they start, if I can just do real quick, in your packet, you have your single audit report. This is a federal requirement when we receive over $1 million of funding.
Right.
You have your financial statements. This is your traditional audit. And then I provided some supplements of what actually goes into each of those.
Right.
And just a synopsis of the audit started April 21st. Right around the beginning of June, that's when everything becomes heavy with the meetings and the emails, and I have a question, let's jump on Teams. The first draft came out about the beginning of July. We did a review, a new draft came out, and then we were late providing the manager discussion and analysis, and we found one misclassification that was supposed to be grants, and I had it reported as debt, so that's why it was late. So I apologize for that, but those have been fixed and ready for.
And those fixes are what we're now.
Yeah.
Looking
Yeah,
at.
corrected.
Yeah.
copies.
So just to be clear, I know you provided this stuff here, but this is like a general ledger listed here. But there's no, this is just for much work to do with
It's
this.
FYI.
Yeah.
It's in, I went through it all.
Yeah.
It's in
I
FYI.
understand
Just
that.
go to the specific good pages.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no reference anywhere in this
It's
stuff,
kind of-
to anything here.
Yeah, it's just
Actually,
what.
it's- well, actually, there are
Just, everyone has a sort of a
Yeah.
references to
reference sheet.
Yeah.
the different,
In this body here?
yes,
Okay.
but it's word references.
One refers back to, yeah,
To this reference.
it is. That's
It's not
confusing.
at all clear.
Got it.
I
That's
had
the
to
point.
number everything to figure that
You're
out.
saying the caption here,
Yes,
captain.
that's reference.
The first thing you have
Yeah.
to, the
Well,
first thing you have
I
to
had
do
the
is,
same issue and I'm trying to figure out what are all these things for the zeros.
the first thing you have to do is put your section. It will refer back.
So,
Yeah.
But that-
Okay, thank you.
So what you're saying is I should have labeled like current assets is what is actually the label that it's under.
Just
Is
to
that-
figure out why this is
Okay.
here, that's all. I'll
Yeah,
figure out.
it was just supplemental, so you know what's actually going into each category, because we're not gonna split up 6 pages worth of accounts.
No, but the important thing is that you
If
have
you
to know what
look
to
at
reference
the
back.
main, if you look at the main report on,
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
right.
keep it going
Yeah, they-
for my purposes, so.
Hmm?
Go ahead,
so,
go ahead. You can
So
explain
if
for my
you're
purposes.
looking at the main one for the financial statement,
Mhm.
when you go to page,
or,
no, we're gonna go to the actual financial statements for not the manager discussion analysis, page 10. Your statement of net position. So you have your assets, current assets,
Mhm.
and then it lists everything down. So for your current assets under cash, these accounts are all included in cash. And all of these are included in investments.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's what I was trying to show. Sorry if it created more confusion.
Well,
So I'll start labeling it like a page 10 in the audit.
well, we got, that's
So,
kind of.
yeah.
What we did.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
good.
so
Good
is
to
it
know.
appropriate for the auditors to?
Yep.
Kick in.
For them to take over.
Well, you know what, in the future, because you have subgroup numbers here, right?
Uh-huh.
Is there a number for investment? There's a, on the subgroups here. Or listed on this, right? Or maybe just throw a subgroup number within that,
Right
In the
next to
financial
it.
statement.
you know?
It'd be
Okay.
easy to follow.
Yeah.
So, for example, you have cash, you have subgroup 105. You're saying that. Page on chart 10,
Mhm.
page 10.
That's.
And then do like a subgroup 105.
Yeah.
On the thing.
Cash. Yes.
Okay.
It'd be
Yep.
Easier.
And that way we can go right through here and figure out what's in, because one of the things I thought about was if investments and the expenses, I wasn't sure the investment expenses because the investment expenses are crazy. They're very high. I didn't know if there were losses associated with that or not. But at least if I had this, the subgroups, I can go back and look and say, what's in this thing? Does it include investment losses? But I didn't know that.
Okay.
Now, so this would be helpful from that perspective.
Yeah, the references can be improved.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, definitely.
All right.
Thank you.
So,
All right, whoever's presenting for CNA, we are ready.
Good morning. I am Kim Stank. I am the partner on the engagement. And with me today is Kayla DeMarsh. She is the principal with our firm, and also Elizabeth Staley. And she, as Kim had alluded to, she's been the kind of in the weeds person going through our financial statements. So today, as we've discussed, there's 2 items. There's the financial statements as well as the single audit. And I believe we're going to go through the financial statements first. And I'm going to turn that over to Liz, and she's going to go through those.
Good morning, everybody. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, as Kim said, my name is Elizabeth Staley. I'm the senior on this audit. I've been the main contact with Kim throughout the audit process. And we are first going to go over the financial audit report. The first item on the report is the opinion. We issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. This is a clean opinion and is the highest opinion you can receive in an audit.
Okay, sorry, just, are we talking about the first audit or the second?
The financial statements, the large one.
Talking about this?
No, the one that says the financial.
So, regarding the audit-
Okay, all right, I'm with
Yeah.
you.
regarding the audit of the federal programs, are we talking about it all?
We're, I think she's gonna go over that later. Yes,
Yeah, but right now
Correct.
she's, no,
the financial statements.
oh, okay, and,
Yeah.
okay, so ask her to start again. We can be on the same sheet and use it, please.
Yeah, I can start again. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we're first gonna go over the financial statements audit. The first item in the report, which starts on page 1, is the opinion. We issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. This is a clean opinion and is the highest opinion you can receive in the audit.
Is this paragraph 2?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It's
Thank you.
present.
Just want to confirm that, I can't see.
It's the one
And so,
it's the one I highlighted. I was wondering if that was you just clarified that for me. All right.
so do we need to go up through anything else?
No, we need to go over a couple more things.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not,
and-
and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but did you identify any deficiencies in internal controls? I noted that there was no weaknesses and material weaknesses, but were there any deficiencies in internal controls?
No, we didn't find any weaknesses, and we'll go over that later.
Okay.
The next item, the financial statements start on page 10. We recommend reading the MD&A, which starts on page 4 in conjunction with the financial statements. Kim and Robin did a good job of highlighting significant changes that occurred during the year, and we're just going to cover a few of them. First, on the statement of net position, which starts on page 10, Lewes had a positive unrestricted net position of $9,839,695, which is a good indication of financial health for a government. On the statement of revenue and expenses and changes in net position, there was an increase in net position of $5,359,093, attributed largely to an increase in utility revenue and impact fees. The next section of the report are the footnotes, which start on page 15. I'm not going to review all of these, but I wanted to bring a few of them to your attention. Starting on page 22, we have note 8 for capital assets and note 9 for long-term debt.
A few minutes to get to the page, please.
Okay, yep, I can wait.
We're with you, but you're a little bit faster than we can turn a page.
Okay.
Okay, go right ahead.
Yep, so
Just to
starting
be
on,
clear, I'm sorry not to, I don't, mine goes from note 6 and note 7 and it jumps right to, note 8 is a financial statement itself, not a, okay, got it.
well, it's a footnote, but it's a schedule.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I see it now. Yep, thanks.
No worries. Yeah, so starting on page 22, we have note 8 for the capital assets and note 9 for long-term debt. The authority continues to operate several large projects for water and sewer infrastructure improvement. And that's what the notes are talking about there. And then the next note, I just like to point out on page 29.
Yeah, note 9 goes for a while.
We have note 12, which is for related party transactions. It's a summary of transactions, mainly rent payments in lieu of franchise fees the authority had with its related party, which is the city of Lewes, throughout the fiscal year.
I have a question about that.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
The way I'm reading this about the 5% payment in lieu of franchise
Mm-hmm.
is not accurate. The charters of both the city and BPW have identical language that says the in lieu of franchise fee is from 2% to 5%. It is not a fixed 5% number. And that's important to recognize. The charter states that range, but didn't specify how that range is decided on. So I think it should be clear that there's a range of in lieu of franchise fees in both charters. Exactly same. And if you could reword that to reflect that in some way, that would be very helpful.
But
We
for
can
this
absolutely,
purpose,
we can
for the
absolutely
two,
do that.
5%, with 5%, so.
Yes, but
Yeah.
the way it's worded, it implies like,
It's
That's what it
5%,
is.
period. It's not varied.
you know, I have no problem with, yes, 5% is what was paid, or what was charged. But I have a problem with the implication of the absence of a fee, a range.
It's not that good, we're stated.
Yeah, we can absolutely make that change. There's no
Thank you.
problem. Okay, then following the footnotes is RSI, which starts on page 32.
Make sure it's on top. What page?
Page 32.
One.
Where's the rest of your?
That's what one. Who just follows that?
There's a lot of presentation here on defined pension plan, is that, that's required by?
Okay.
Yes.
Identify it. It's not there, it's not there. It should be.
Even though we no
I think
longer
it's
have
different.
an active defined pension plan.
Don't we have one that's
I
defined,
have these
Okay.
lined up with site.
Defined benefit.
defined
Three, four.
benefit or
So it's gotta be
defined
that
pension?
I believe we just have people that have retired,
Oh,
that are
there's-
still active in that,
Okay.
and there's no new
From
employees.
there.
Yep, just been.
Now, rooms for that.
But the ones that
There's-
retired
This is three,
have
four,
a
this is
different
five.
pension plan.
4, 5.
Then correct
And so
for
that comes before that.
And
So this
the
is
ones that are
this is page
retired,
30.
Yep.
what's the name
Thank you.
designation of that pension plan?
for the retired.
Is it a
employees, you know.
defined benefit or a
It's
defined?
defined benefits for the previous pension plan.
Right, so we have two different pension
Yes.
plans that we are responsible for.
Yes.
Only one being presented in the financials and defined benefit plan.
So we have the defined benefits and then for the current employees, it's a 457B. So it's not defined benefits.
Right, but are we responsible for both pension plans?
We're just matching. We're not in charge of it like a defined benefits.
Okay, so for the current employees, that's the only thing that needs to have an auditor's review versus what the retired people are getting paid from a separate pot. I don't know.
So the defined benefits has to be shown this way. It is required.
Right,
But for our matching, it's in the line for like employee benefits
okay,
as a expense.
okay, so and therefore it's not part of the special, one. Okay. Thank you.
Is a defined benefit plan fully funded?
We are a little short of it, but that is the goal, yes.
You only have a couple dozen, right?
Yeah, and they
Say
just
you
keep
don't
on
have
living.
Yeah, say that, it's great.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah. They've heard a lot of ways, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, so, yep, the footnotes are followed by the RSIs, which start on page 32 for pension schedules. And then the RSI is followed by the other supplementary information, also known as the OSI, for schedules of revenue and expenses and changes in net position and capital asset leads by department, which start on page 36.
So you have the breakdown by segment, water, stormwater, wastewater, and all of these are making profit. I mean, they're all profitable. Are the allocation of expenses correct?
Yeah, at this point. You can have,
And Mike probably can
I
speak
came in.
more to some of that.
This is gonna be page.
Hey, Richard,
Page 32.
We're doing some shuffling.
We're doing some finding your way stuff,
Okay.
and I don't mind saying so. Okay,
Okay,
all right.
Calvin, can you repeat your question? Please?
You were going over the different schedules, and I noticed that the segment reporting based on the 4 areas, they're all showing a profit.
For operating, yes.
Yeah, but.
Not necessarily after you include capital, but yes.
Oh,
So,
well, technicality.
Yeah.
so are they are the allocation of expenses as accurate as you think they should be?
I am gonna say no, and I feel like that should be something discussed when we start talking about that 10-year plan.
Okay, so you're saying no. So these are not necessarily reflective of the,
So for like
Profitability.
administrative, it was set up as 45% goes to electric, 26 goes to water, 24 goes to stormwater, and 5% goes to, or 24% goes to wastewater and 5% goes to stormwater.
set up just the general expenses, they're allocated that way by
Yes,
percentage?
so like if it's something that's happening in this office, that's how it gets split up.
Mhm.
How was that, what was the basis for those?
I believe that was based on revenue at some point, but it has not been revisited for quite a while.
Oh, well.
That it should change, especially with like for our stormwater. That we keep having to increase rates to cover our operating costs, so our revenue is much higher than it was.
So we're publishing, well, we're not publishing this popular football, yes, we are.
Yeah, really.
These schedules that really are not reflective of the actual profitability of these segments.
So your administrative line, that's where you're gonna see it. On your page 36, 37, under operating expenses.
Yeah, right, that's
36.
I'm with you.
Page 26 or
36.
26.
36, she said. Okay.
Oh, okay, great.
Lots of other things.
So your administrative line under operating expenses.
Okay,
This line
all
here,
right.
Yeah, so you're gonna see electric is the highest by far
yeah,
from anybody, and then water is gonna be your second highest. And then wastewater will be slightly lower than water, and then stormwater gets 5% of it. So in that line, I think there's work to be done there.
so you're just talking about allocating about $800,000 to those 4 areas. No. That's a lot.
And these are reflective of the 5-year window, not a 10-year window. Or,
No, this is just this past year.
okay,
Yeah, this is the just past fiscal year.
all right.
So
But-
this is an annual audit report. Can we endeavor to kind of make sure that the next one has the correct allocations? So
That will be something that we work on in the finance committee.
so we have,
Yeah.
you got a year to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now that we know this, the
Yep.
difference is that we don't publish again. with
Yeah.
inaccurate numbers.
What's the way, what are the words? The agenda then, what are the,
Administrative allocation,
Maybe inaccurate number is not the right way to say that, but.
No, don't say. it.
reassess,
Allocate.
reassess.
Please.
So,
Thank you.
reallocate?
That's all we need to
Reassess.
say.
Reassess the administrative allocation.
So far, what we've done this morning is people who presented have basically gone through the impacts of
Bob, we
We can't.
can't make out what you're saying. We can hear you, but we can't understand you.
It's staccato. For some reason.
I'm sorry for that. This is called sharing.
it's not working, Bob.
Yeah, your voice isn't working, Bob.
Is there a chat or anything? There is.
Yeah, there it is.
Hey, Bob, can you type in the chat?
Oh, sure.
I think he's saying call me.
Yeah.
Okay, better idea.
For us, the chat has been disabled, so
Oh,
he
okay.
may not be able to chat.
And send it in a Q&A sometimes. When the chat's disabled, the Q&A sometimes is enabled.
Bob, answer your phone, please.
Wow.
He's calling.
Yep.
Yep, we're here.
All right. What we've done so far in this meeting is the people presenting it essentially presented the index. But, you know, they really haven't discussed the results. And hopefully we can do a lot better next time. I mean, most of this has been page turning, trying to catch up. Oh, you're looking at page 22 of this document. That's interesting. But I can't say that I've really learned much from the presentation.
We're putting it in order.
He's not falling off, he's confused.
It's fine, but.
Bob, have you heard the very beginning of the presentation? Okay,
Oh, well.
so what were you expecting? And is there a way you can verbalize or?
That we go back to the audit and say, the woman said, this is the highest opinion you can get, okay? It's got a lot of loopholes in it, but maybe that's what we have to expect.
Yeah.
Then the next section they went to was page, I don't know, you all were catching up. Let's go back there and discuss that one.
Which page are you talking about? What were they?
The first, that's
Where the opinion was, Bob?
so I have to.
Right, with the opinion, I think the opinion is pretty weak, but that's my opinion. And I think they read them all that way that we said. What was the next thing they mentioned?
I think we went to page 10 after that.
7, I think.
Page 10. Page 7. No, page 10.
I think, given the sound problems, you need to go on, but I think I'll just drop out of this meeting because it's not really worth it.
Okay.
Who does it?
Let's hear what we can and what his concern is.
So you're gonna drop out the second one.
So do you want to review the opinion again?
I think what I'm gonna do is I'll listen to the rest of the meeting and vote no on accepting the audit.
Fine.
Okay.
Why in
Because
basics?
he's not here and he can't hear.
Because
I can hear fine.
But you're not following us though.
I think the presentation is lacking.
They haven't given it yet. They're in the very initial stages and we are working through trying to get the papers in order so that we can move forward with them. That's where we are right now, Bob.
Okay, I'll listen.
Okay.
All right.
they
Yeah.
leave him on because he may have a comment if we can. Because we're not picking it up off of the screen.
Okay, so where are we?
Elizabeth.
So we were at talking about the we were talking about the OSIs. So we're towards the back of the audit report. And does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to go over again regarding the financial audit report?
So what I remember where we left off was page 36, 37, and the administrative reassessment issue.
Yes, that's where you guys were at.
And
So far, we've kind of gone just very, very high level over your financial statements. If you would like us to go kind of dig deep, we can do that. A lot of those questions will probably be answered by Kim versus us, if that makes sense.
okay, let's take a try at that.
Okay, so if you want to look at pages 36, so, it breaks it out into the OSI and those schedule of revenues, expenses, and changes in debt position. So it's by each department. And, we can start with the electric department. As Kim said, the administrative expenses are split between the different departments, as well as, some expenses are directly related and directly attributed to each department. Others are split out by a percentage.
Your audio is cut out.
Hmm.
Peter.
Have I completely cut out altogether?
You're back, you're back.
Okay, so when you look at the electric department, you can see comparative. The first column is the 2025, the second column is 2026. So total operating revenues, 13.4 million, and operating expenses, 12.4 million. So overall operating income is $1 million. Then, of course, there's some non-operating revenues, which include interest income, investment expenses, impact fees, gains and loss on sale of assets, changes in fair value, grants, etc. And in this case, it was a positive 356,000. So in total for that electric department, it is 1.4 million positive change in net position. So a positive income for the year. So bringing that net position for that department to 19 million.
Okay, Bob, did you hear that?
Yes.
And was that helpful, irrelevant, or whatever? What?
He said he's just gonna listen.
Well, if it's wasteful of your time and our time, guessing, because we're not understanding what we're looking for from an auditor's additional presentation. And that, I thought, might be an example of a further reiteration on this particular page. And if that is helpful or irrelevant, it would be good to know so that we can better understand and get to the point and points or the concept that you are looking for. And we seem not to understand what the difference is.
Bob, do you have a response?
I'll just like it.
Okay,
All right, so we just finished the. Okay. That was simply the electric, all right?
well, but if
We
But we
know,
can-
we know for most part.
we can read it.
yeah,
Are
yeah.
you satisfied with? I'm satisfied.
We know the way.
No. Is what has been presented so far helpful, useful,
I agree.
missing something?
We can read it, we've already read.
We already,
Right, okay, all
yeah,
right.
we did this
So
before we got here.
the we have gone through, I think, the entire main report.
Mhm.
And do you, Calvin, have any comments, questions at the moment on the presentation or intelligibility or what's missing or what would be more helpful?
Well, I think we started this conversation, at least I did, wanted to know, as we got into the beginning of this, I wanted to know if there were any identified deficiencies in internal controls. And we were told that they were gonna get into that later.
Okay,
And I assumed that later meant they would get into a lot of the meat
Of what it,
you know, and what they're doing, what they're testing. You know, when they come in and obviously they do testing, right? I mean, what does the test look like when they're conducting these reviews?
it's gonna, where they're coming from.
okay. Can we? Elizabeth, if you're the one that's, we should be asking, did you hear that and understand the question?
No, I honestly didn't hear. I'm sorry.
Okay,
About internal
So-
controls, if there's any deficiencies.
So if you don't mind, I'm gonna jump in. I'm Kayla, and so regarding internal controls, if you move over to the single audit report, and you'll see the very first opinion in that report is our report on internal control over financial reporting. This is basically your government auditing standards opinion. So this is what Liz had referred to when she said we would get to discussing internal controls later in the presentation.
okay,
Because you guys have a single audit this year, that report on internal control is presented with your single audit instead of with your financial statements.
so otherwise, if this single report weren't required, what's relevant in auditing would have been included in the main report?
That's correct. This report on internal control would have been the very last opinion in your financial report.
Okay, thank you.
But because you had a single audit, because you spent more than $750,000 in federal funding, it's required to move over into your single audit report. So it's just a little variance in presentation.
Okay. But the information would be essentially identical.
Exactly. The content would not change.
Okay,
So if you look at page 1 of that opinion,
right,
you'll see the second section is the report on internal control over financial reporting. And we're going to
Right.
start by defining what the two different types of deficiencies are. They could either be a material weakness or a significant deficiency. A material weakness would be more pervasive. And if you read, it's the 4th paragraph down or the 3rd paragraph in that section, we're going to describe that, you know, we didn't look at everything in your audit. There were some limitations, but given these limitations, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be material weaknesses. There may be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that exist and were not identified as part of the audit.
is that standard language?
Yes. So if we had identified either a material weakness or a significant deficiency, we would have identified a finding in that paragraph. And then I'm going to do some flipping again. But in that report, if you flip back to the schedule of findings and question cost, that would be on page 10
Of the main
of the
report?
single audit report.
Page 10 of the single audit report.
Yep.
Okay,
And you'll see, I'll give you some time to flip.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Which kind of the.
of the single.
So there are 2 sections on that page. Your first section would be your financial statement findings. And if we had identified a deficiency, this is where we would go in to describe it. We would describe what the criteria was, what the regulation, what conditions we noted, whether this was a repeat finding, how it impacted things, and then there would be a management's response to the finding.
That's what I'm clear, okay, we can call it a single audit report, I got it, it's called a single audit. And then the other one's called a financial statement.
So if you can see in this year's report under financial statement findings, there are none because we did not identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies.
And are you confirming that this statement, what we're going over, does apply to the main report, even though it's not in the main report?
Yep, so if you flip back to page 1, the opinion, you'll see it's the report on internal control over financial reporting. So even though it's in your single audit report, it relates to the financial reporting aspect, your financial statements.
The government wants to see that.
Why is this?
That first
So
first
required.
underlined
That's so
set of
complicated.
words.
Does it? I'm not used to this.
It's a requirement.
Yep, so the heading is report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters based on an audit of financial statements.
I guess
Hey,
when I was reading this, I would assume that I read it to be what you did, what you reviewed was in connection with the federal programs that required it
was mandatory.
an audit, not necessarily with the overall operation of and the financial statements of.
So that's the second opinion and we'll get to that one. So the first opinion is over your financial statements. The second one is over the federal programs.
There has got to be a better way to do
This
this.
is the first, I think this is the first.
Well, if we did-
Unfortunately, the
Sorry,
layout of the
This
single
would be
audit
gone and
report,
it wouldn't be confusing. But we do have a bunch of federal
Yeah, no.
funding, so
I
this has to be
understand
required. Hey, Kayla, I have a question for you.
that.
sure.
The report on internal control over financial reporting, can we have that on both reports?
Yes,
With
we can
that,
put that.
It has
It'll
to
just be exactly the
Okay.
same opinion. It'll just be at
That's
end of
mandatory.
your
So, and I don't know if maybe we should point this out, but if you flip back to the financial statement opinion on page 3, the very last paragraph of that opinion will reference this control report in a separate report.
It's 3 of the financial statements.
Yeah,
Audit.
independent auditors report page. This one.
This is the single report.
No, this is the other one.
This is independent auditors report page. This one?
Page 1.
Yeah. You're talking about.
So if you
page
go to
one.
page
No.
3,
Okay.
there's a paragraph called Other Reporting Required by Government Auditing Standards. And that will refer you to the separate report on internal controls.
so if we just put that section in the financial,
Okay. So what?
would
sheet-
that
Has to be a better way to do
stop the
this.
confusion of,
So on the main audit,
yes,
page,
financial
the
statement?
financial statement, page 3,
Yeah,
at the end,
yeah.
says other reporting required by government auditing standard.
Okay,
Right.
now mine says page 3.
And
Correct.
if I'm understanding the text on page 3 of the single report
You can have this. If
I have it, here, look, I got it.
you had.
would go
Okay.
Yeah.
next to that.
So if we're putting the opinion in both, your government auditing standards opinion, that opinion on internal control will go at the end of your financial statement report. It'll be the very last pages of your report.
This is the one report.
Which at the very last page currently is 3. And
Well,
then-
it'll currently, the report on internal control will actually slide in and will become pages 42 and 43 of the financial statement report.
Ah, okay.
And they're not here now because why?
So under uniform guidance, which is the regulations that guide your single audit, your government auditing standards report, that report on internal control, is required to accompany the single audit. So we have to put it in your single audit report because it's under the federal regulations when you have a single audit.
And so for additional clarification from BPW standpoint, we seem to be asking to blend or have what's on page 3 of the single be page 42 and 43 of the main audit.
Right, so we would duplicate the opinion. This financial reporting opinion will show up in both reports.
Okay. Does everybody here understand that, and does it make sense? Hello?
Do you feel if it's duplicate in both reports, is that gonna cause for confusion? Are you gonna get questions of why do we have it in two separate spots?
We got two separate audits here.
Because it seems to be a missing
Okay.
piece of clarification in the main report, which somebody may say, well, what, where is that?
Okay.
And doesn't want to hear about, oh, well, it's in some other report, but it refers to it. And
But the issues here are that there's too much crossover.
Mhm.
And, just trying to understand where we are. I'm not used to that. I have done 1,000 audits. And I've never sat here and had to figure out what goes where. So whatever we can do to clarify that from my perspective is where I'm coming from.
well,
I don't.
and
get
we
that.
also want to be able to respond to similar questions
Yeah.
from the board. When we say, yes, we've reviewed, we understand.
The board will never get this.
And, but it's a public document at that point. And people will read it or say, well, but wait a minute, I've seen this movie before. And, how come we've got two different things on different sets of reports?
So if you put those pages in the financial statement report and says this references the single audit report as a note, so they know that it crosses over and it's the same information.
So they put this in here to tell people to look here. But
Does it
if
tell
we,
people to look there?
that there's
Yes, does it tell people to look?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't right
Does he
now.
answer that for you?
If you don't mind, could I refer back to that paragraph in the financial statements? It might be helpful if we actually read that and review it in more depth.
Page
So-
3, reporting required by government auditing standards, yes?
Correct.
Okay.
So in accordance with government auditing standards, we have also issued our report dated, it'll be dated whatever date we actually end up issuing these reports.
Yeah.
On our consideration of the board's internal control over financial reporting and on our test of its compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements and other matters. The purpose of that report is solely to describe the scope of our testing of internal control over financial reporting and compliance and the results of that testing, and not to provide an opinion on the effectiveness of internal control over financial reporting or compliance. That report is an integral part of an audit performed in accordance with government auditing standards in considering the board's internal control over financial reporting and compliance.
Can we, in that very first line, instead of saying our report, can we name it the single audit report?
So the report would actually, it's not going to encompass your whole single audit report. It's just that first opinion, the report on internal control over financial reporting.
It won't have all the pages.
So you can't be that.
So maybe let's back up. With a single audit, there's multiple components. So your first component is going to be what people refer to as your yellow book. That's your government auditing standards. That is your internal control over financial reporting. It's your compliance with laws and regulations. And then the second piece of it is your actual compliance with the federal program. And that's your uniform guidance opinion. So in your single audit report, that's on page 3. That's a completely separate opinion. So there's multiple layers to a single audit report.
The single audit. So we're gonna put report on internal control over financial reporting in the financial statement.
Yes, we're gonna add it at pages 42 and 43.
Okay.
And it will also still appear in the single audit
That is
report.
correct. It has to be presented as part of your single audit report.
Right. Okay.
The financial status is only going to have the first paragraph or both the first and second? First and second. Right?
It's gonna have this whole.
It should be this whole page.
Yeah.
It will be all of pages 1 and 2.
Mm.
So what we are calling page 42 and 43 of the main audit
Financial statements.
of financial statements
Page
will
42.
still be page 3 and 4, let's say.
One and two.
One and two.
Of single audit.
Yes. Just write it at the bottom.
So on page 3 of the single audit report, paragraph 2, in our opinion, the board complied in all material respects and the compliance requirements referred to above.
So let me jump in with that opinion. So
Mhm.
like we said, your single audit report is composed of 2 different opinions. The first is internal control over the financial statements. And the second is internal control and compliance over your major federal program under uniform guidance. So basically, this is all related to that federal program we tested. So this year, your major federal program was capitalization grants for drinking water state revolving fund loans. So that is assistance listing number 66468. So that is the federal program. And what this opinion is saying is we tested as part of your single audit report every direct and material compliance requirement that the federal OMB compliance supplement identified as being applicable to the program. So in regards to those federal requirements that were applicable to the program that were also direct and material to Lewes, we're saying that you have complied in all material respects with those compliance requirements. Do I have any questions so far?
I had that circle, so I'm glad you explained that.
Sounds right. Kim, does that sound like the right, a workable solution that can be better understood?
What are you referring to? Of moving that first page to the back of?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's not a,
So you don't have to look at two
see
different
also
documents.
some other
Yeah.
report.
That you can look at one document and get the information
And,
that you
and the
might want.
fact that the wording will be absolutely word for word identical
Mhm.
has no detrimental effect.
Correct.
Okay. So any objection at the moment from that? For doing that and kind of
No,
moving further?
No, it's
Along.
clarity, it helps.
Okay. And is that more helpful, Calvin, for the statement of opinions that the audit is good, it's kosher, it's been well done, it's methodical, been tested, and there's no reason to question it so far?
Well, if you follow what she said as it relates to specifically addresses the federal compliance,
Right.
then you'll know where to place this.
Okay, I mean, I know that you had mentioned a concern of the validity or the
Yeah.
strength of the opinion. And understanding that there are limits to what you can opine about.
But my understanding, we're talking about two different things, right? The compliance, the federal program has specific requirements and compliance requirements and other requirements, and they specifically looked at those
Mm-hmm.
and looked at our compliance with those federal requirements
Mhm.
and concluded that in fact we are in compliance with the requirements. Right?
Exactly.
Now, I'm not sure what documentation they looked at, but I assume you gave them all the documentation that they needed to form that reasonably, that was the case.
Yes.
They give us reasonable assurance, like reviewing all the documents, that in fact we are in compliance. Right?
Yes.
And that's.
And
That's
Of that program
yeah,
and those requirements.
and then duplicating that text portion in the financial report makes, it doesn't negate it or anything, it strengthens it.
We're not over there, that's what,
Well,
we're
yeah.
just dealing with the Fed.
Well, I do want to make one clarification. The
Mhm.
report on uniform guidance and your compliance with direct and material federal requirements is not going to be the opinion that flips over to the financial statements.
Understand.
Yeah, no, we understand.
Okay,
It's
Okay.
strict Fed. No, we got that.
So we're trying to understand what exactly you looked at from the financial statement
Yeah,
perspective.
because this is one-sided.
You know, what.
Sure. So would you like us to kind of go like a deep depth overview of kind of the significant things of the audit?
Well, I mean, one of the questions I have is like, what did you look at? What testing did you do? What accounting policies did you review? I mean, I don't have a list of those. I don't know what was tested and what was reviewed from the financial standpoint.
do you hear that question, and do you
Yep,
understand?
so we can go over that. So one of the first things we do is obviously we have to do this report on internal control over compliance. So we consider some of your major financial cycles. So there are cash disbursements, cash receipts, payroll, treasury processes, which are usually like your debt and investments. And we pick something of those transaction cycles that we think are significant. In your case, we did cash disbursements. And what we'll do is we'll pull a sample of cash disbursements throughout the year and we'll actually walk through each transaction. So from our perspective, it becomes what's known as a dual purpose test. which means we're looking at it from two perspectives. One is going to be the internal control perspective. So we're looking to see that that invoice is signed, that there's an approved purchase order, somehow there was approval prior to making that purchase. Then the second piece of that test is what's known as a substantive test. And from that aspect, we're purely looking at the amounts and how they flowed through to the ledger. So we're making sure that what got booked to your general ledger is matching the invoice, that there's supporting documentations for the amount of that purchase, and that things were recorded correctly, net of applicable discounts and things like that. So that's kind of the first aspect. Now, in addition to that, over internal control, while we might not test these specific areas, we do gain an understanding of all your significant financial areas. So cash disbursements, cash receipts, payroll. We'll kind of work with management to create a narrative of what your processes are, what your internal control steps are that you have in place. We'll do a walkthrough of a transaction. So a walkthrough is kind of following that transaction all the way from when it comes into Lewes, whether that be a remittance, an invoice, an employee time card, and following it all the way through to the time it leaves or gets recorded. So we'll follow it through to your ledger, your deposit memos, your bank statement, and just see, observe, and understand how that information flows through to your ledger and ultimately your financial statements. Another aspect we'll do, which is kind of considered on the internal control side, is we'll review significant journal entries. So for any entry that is material in terms of what we deem significant to the audit, we'll take a look at that journal entry. We'll ask management to provide us some support. We'll make sure that it's recorded to the ledger appropriately, that it seems reasonable, that we don't observe any management bias or any possible management override of internal controls. So that's all kind of flowing into the audit planning phase. It's kind of going into our risk assessment.
Hold on, just
Hold on, time out.
Stop you just for a second. So do you have those documented process flows from the beginning to end?
Sort of like a checklist.
No, actually a process flow. I mean, do you actually have a process flow?
Yep, so it's kind of, we put them in a narrative format and we align it with COSO, which is the Green Book's guidance on government internal controls. So we'll put it into the 5 different compliance areas: control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, and monitoring.
Okay, so you don't necessarily have a process flow then for the items that you tested.
So your control activities will kind of describe that, but it won't necessarily be in step format. It's in paragraph narrative format.
Okay. Okay. So, and how many of these areas did you actually conduct this process flow or narrative? And how many total? What was your scope of this activity?
So what we actually chose to test, the cycle we chose to test, was cash disbursements. And based on AICPA auditing guidance, we would have pulled 40 transactions.
That's because of the number of transactions for the period.
Correct. So AICPA guidance is if you have more than 250 transactions, we need to pull 40 for the audit process. And then for the other processes, we did not select them for testing of operating effectiveness. We simply gained an understanding of them and performed a walkthrough of an individual transaction.
So the cash disbursements is the only area that we actually went through and tested it?
So with internal controls, there's 2 aspects to it. There's understanding it and then testing for operating effectiveness.
I understand.
Yes, so the only cycle that was tested for operating effectiveness was cash disbursements.
You said, I think you mentioned that you also did some walkthrough of some other categories.
Correct. So we would have done a walkthrough of a transaction in cash receipts. We walked through a payroll cycle transaction. We walked through a treasury cycle transaction. Those are your debt and investments. We would have walked through your reporting and closing cycle. And then based on your financial statements, we do what's known as a scoping and mapping. So we'll take all the different elements of your financial statements, cash, investments, receivables, inventory, and we'll kind of analyze them from multiple perspectives. So whether they're significant in dollar amount, whether they're a significant disclosure, whether they have a significant risk identified with those. And then based on how those are mapped out, we do some walkthroughs of some transactions in there. So I pulled up your form specific to Lewes, and we also walked through some control processes over cash, over investments, over capital assets, over long-term debt and lease liabilities, over net position and fund balance, and over journal entries.
Of those walkthroughs, just order of magnitude overall, is it in hundreds of walkthroughs? Is it thousands?
So for each process, we will walk through one transaction. We did not select these other processes for testing of effectiveness of the internal control. We simply looked at it to gain an understanding of the internal control.
So again, how many activities are we talking about? You mentioned you tested one, but you did walkthroughs of others. I'm trying to get a sense of the universe here.
We probably walked through transactions for 10 different cycles or financial statement areas.
All right, so you tested how many? One? Walkthrough
One
10.
transaction from each.
Right,
Oh, I see. From each category.
Yeah, they don't go.
Right.
Well, typically, if you do it was a walk, we just go end to end on one transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Get a sense as to
Mm-hmm.
before you test. But they do that. You did that with cash too. You just tested cash. And you tested 40. But how many? What's the universe? You said there's 10. What's the universe look like?
So that would be every transaction you have. So the control we looked at for cash was that there's a review of the bank reconciliation. So in your case, that would be there's a bank reconciliation every month for every single cash account you have, which I don't know that number off the top of my head.
There's one.
Yep.
So then your population would have been 12. And we would have walked through one of them.
Right, understand. But again, I'm getting a sense of the 10 activities that you walk through. How many in total? I mean, in total at BPW. I mean, how many? What does 10 represent? 10%, 5%, 2% of the total activities? And you just decided to choose 10 of those numbers.
So nope. So basically what we did is any transaction cycle, so a process that was deemed significant. So that would have been your cash receipts, cash disbursements, payroll, treasury, reporting, and closing. And then we take your different categories, cash, investments, receivables, and we scope and map them based on whether they have a significant dollar balance, whether they're a significant disclosure, whether there's a significant risk. And based on how those are answered, for the items that pop as significant in one of those categories, we'll then walk through a transaction. Those are deemed your significant account balances.
So you're saying that the ones that you've identified as significant were 10.
Correct.
No more, there were no other in that category then. Do you have the work papers that they could look at? Do you have the backup for all this?
So they provide a needed material from me that I send everything to them, and then after that, it's them walking through all the invoices and everything and asking for the backups and so it's them asking me for the information.
Because you don't see their work papers at all, you don't see.
Now, so far, we've only talked about the internal control aspect. The other piece of your audit is once we have that or understanding of internal control and your entity and how your processes work, we'll then risk assess your financial statement areas, and then we do substantive testing. So this is where we can either, from an analytical aspect, look at different accounts and balances you have, or we can do a substantive test of details, in which case we'll drill down to supporting documents, we'll test specific transactions. So we did more testing than just the 10 transactions we pulled. It's just those other 10 areas that were significant. We then tested those substantively. So for example, in cash, we would have looked at your bank statement and your bank reconciliation. We would have tested significant reconciling items, so deposits in transit, outstanding checks, other reconciling items. We would have done a transfer test. Well, actually, we wouldn't for you guys since you only have one account. But another area we would have looked at would have been investments. And in that case, we would have taken your investment values from your ledger and tied them into the investment statement. We did a test of valuation. So we sampled some transactions throughout the year and looked at an independent source, whether that be Yahoo Finance, CNN, basically a publicly traded information. And we would have looked at those values as of your year end and made sure that the amounts that were being recorded were reasonable based on market information. Is this helpful? Would you like me to continue in this level of detail?
I think I have a good idea of it. How about you?
Calvin?
I think I'm good.
Okay,
Yes,
I'll
you'd
keep
like
going
to
through the
continue it?
different
Okay.
areas.
Okay, so far,
No, but like, I think
No,
we
no.
need, I think we get more of an understanding of
Yeah.
the scope here.
Yeah.
Can you share with us any kind of more background information here, more scope, more details? Did you have any of that at all?
I would
Okay.
ask the auditor to provide like their narrative that they're talked about.
Oh, okay.
We need more understanding.
Yeah, you basically just work with them, but you turn everything over to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's where we are in terms of.
Okay.
so what is it that we're looking for in addition? It sounds like at the moment, we don't need Kayla to give us more information on what she's given so far. But that there is some additional
Documentation. So we
documentation
can understand
that
what you're saying.
we could provide.
Well, we
No,
need
no,
more
no.
clarity
Or no.
on it, and what she did was give us clarity on what
Right.
we, it's hard to just take this and look at it without knowing some of this.
Right.
So she clarified a lot of it just a few moments ago. Were you gonna say something? I'm sorry.
That's why I asked, so. Just to gain some concept and understanding for me. So usually when you give the auditors the information that you give them, because they're the expertise in knowing how to audit. You usually don't, they just write their opinion or narrative or paragraph, whatever they're writing, and then it just comes back.
Well, the difference with them and the city and having done audits with the city is I meet with them and they sit with me and we go over stuff.
Is that?
And
not what you did?
then they come back with something, then I have them present it to the council. But it is much more hands-on.
We just
You
do
know
it
what I
virtually.
mean? It's much, they give their stuff to them. We get into it a little more.
So we do everything virtual with Teams meetings, a share folder, emails, instead of them coming here physically to sit here for a week to go through every paper that I print off to give them.
Well, I appreciated the presentation a few moments ago. Thank you. in the clarity of all of this, because without starting with that, it's very hard to just pick up this up and think you can understand it, at least from my perspective. So thank you for the, the cash disbursement, the payroll, the treasury, the closing cycle. All of that's important for us to know so that we could somewhat figure out how to go through this. I found this a little bit complicated.
Understand too, the accounting policies that they reviewed. Did you give them accounting policies?
As in what?
Just reading what's here. They reviewed their accounting policies.
Like we're following a gap in GASB policies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kayla, what accounting policy did you review? Can you give us a list of those? Or at least give,
So in terms, basically any transaction we would have pulled, we want to make sure that you're following GAAP. So GAAP for a government would be in accordance with the Government Auditing Standards Board pronouncements.
Yeah, right.
I read it to mean our policies. Like,
They do our policies. They do that for internal controls. They're not weighing in on the quality of our internal policies. They're weighing in that we're following our internal policies.
I understand.
So
I
the
understand.
purpose of our audit is to make sure that your financial statements are not materially misstated in accordance with GAAP.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, what I read was our policies. I wanted to know what our accounting policy that we had that you reviewed. What you're saying is that you didn't review any, you're looking at GAAP.
Correct. And your policies need to align with GAAP.
Mm-hmm.
So like your revenue recognition policies, and this might help you kind of, our guidance, if you look at the financial statement audit, the very, so it's the second footnote, and then I'm reading off of page 15. This is your summary of significant accounting policies. So we make sure that these are in alignment with GASB. And then this is kind of the guidance of, it'll break it down for each significant financial statement element, how those are being treated in your financial statements.
And just for clarity, you did not look at any of our accounting policies if we had any. You're looking at compliance and the actual process that we have to comply with GAAP, right? Correct, Kayla?
There is no actually written accounting policies.
Just that we follow.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what GASB
That's
is.
the point.
That's the point. They're usually,
Yeah.
So they only can, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're asking her.
for something hard to look at,
What
and I don't think
the
that.
BPW.
Right.
That's what you're asking, right?
Or it's a significant accounting policies somewhere, and there was somewhere here that says they reviewed our policies, Kayla. I'm just curious what policies that you reviewed, that's all.
It'll be fine, but it'll be internal controls for any policies, but just for general accounting, we just follow.
Okay,
And you didn't you didn't give us any kind of reasonable assurance that we were in compliance with the policies, GAAP policies.
Yeah. So that again is not the purpose of our audit. Our audit
right.
is to
No,
make sure that
Exactly right.
they're materially stated in accordance with GAAP.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So that was the limitation, okay.
Mhm.
Is that separate audit you can do?
Yes, because you're asking for something they don't. know.
So if we can do under an AUP, which is an agreed upon procedure, we can look, you can pull out any specific steps or procedures that you'd like us to perform that are financial related. And kind of you have to define those steps of exactly what you'd like us to look at. And then we can go through and do a detailed test in those specific areas. So if one of them was, the way you phrase the procedure would kind of have to be in a yes or no. We can't make a judgment call. We can't tell you that this policy is reasonable or this policy should be revised. If it's not in accordance with GAAP, that kind of crosses the line of independence as an auditor. That would fall more under your consulting side. And because as your auditors, we have to be independent of your organization. We can't help you design policies unless we can give you a recommendation that, hey, this doesn't follow GAAP, but we can't write your policies. Does that make sense?
I clearly understand that, and I was, when I made the comment, I was assuming that you had a consulting side as well, that's independent from you all.
We can give you recommendations. We work with companies that specialize in consulting from the governmental practice, but we personally wouldn't be able to do that because we do your audit.
Right.
I understand,
Well, yeah,
I completely understand that, just a matter of, a lot of firms have another area that consults, separate and apart from the audit board, right? But you don't have that.
So we have an organization, Susquehanna Accounting and Consulting Services, that we can recommend to you. They're right in our building. If
Okay.
there's something specific you'd like in terms of helping you write a policy and procedure manual or something of that nature.
All right, understand, I just want to understand what you have available. Thank you.
Hey, Richard,
Yes.
Do you want to say?
just kind of ask a question, and Carolyn, it'd probably be good if get your thoughts on this too.
Mm.
Auditing is a very technical function. Requires a lot of detail, a lot of detail work, a lot of specialized training. And so organizations like ours have gone out and hired a specialist in this. Z&A here is obviously doing that function. They have come back with an opinion that we do not have any material weaknesses, and it feels to me like a good audit from what I'm hearing. The role of the finance committee, it feels to me, potentially could be simply, we did the audit, we hired a qualified firm to do a very technical audit, we've got a good opinion, and now we're going to bring that to the board. We could go down a separate route, which is to try to train the individual members of the finance committee on how an audit actually works. You know, what routes are taken, how many accounts are followed, and so on and so forth. That feels to me like way out of the scope of making sure that we've done an audit and we've got a good opinion. If we had a bad opinion, I think we could be spending a lot of time on what drove that.
That's right.
And then trying to understand what we could do better internally to make sure that, you know, we don't have that issue come up. But a lot of this conversation, you know, me sitting back, feels like we've veered from, we've got a really good audit here. We hired a good firm who produced a good opinion for us. To getting into the nuts and bolts and weeds of how an audit actually works. And I'm wondering if we're sort of stepping in territory that's sort of beyond where we should be. But that's
So we've done that as a separate
Like we're
presentation
auditing
for
the
other
auditor.
entities.
Yeah.
And we don't want
That's-
to.
Go ahead, Kayla.
We've kind of done that as a separate presentation for other entities, and we'll kind of, it won't focus necessarily on your specifics, but it's understanding government financial statements as a whole. We'll go through how transactions are recorded between different statements, what are some significant accounting policies, how the different statements work, what kind of goes into RSI and OSI, and all the different elements that ultimately make up your report.
Thank you for that, but my personal opinion, that's not where we need to go. I think, in terms of what was just said, it's apparent that you have answered the question as it relates to, was this a good or bad audit? Very clear and concise. My problem was that there was so many pieces that you had to refer to this and refer to that, refer to this, that it got sort of out of whack. But in terms of the audit, in terms of the fact that there's a specific area, if we were to give it to our, I was gonna say employees, I apologize, to the people in Lewes, to just basically understand it was a good audit. It's clear and concise in one paragraph. You had to look for it, but it was there. And I agree with what Mike said, that we don't need to take it to this any more detail, in my personal opinion, because then you're getting into the accounting aspect of this, as opposed to what an audit really is. And if they had come back and said something that was something we could go after, okay, that there was an issue, would be different. But I think the issue here with us was that there was so much, and it was here and it was there, whatever. But the bottom line is, again, I go with Mike, it's a good audit, and I don't find it necessary to take it anyplace else. That's my personal opinion.
Can I ask two more questions? Is the debt service credit ratio important as an auditing issue?
It's not put in the audit, that's an internal,
It's just
Process that we
internal,
do.
and they're not freaking cooking.
No.
And the other modification or comment on note 1, page 15,
Right.
under organization,
Mm-hmm.
is governed by 5 publicly elected directors. Can we add unpaid to that description of the directors? So it's by 5 unpaid publicly elected directors
We can add that wording.
or volunteer.
Uncompensated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, just for the record, I hear Mike and I hear you, Carolyn, but I'm with the view where you asked me to look at this report. And I think we have to, from my perspective, I want to understand exactly what they're saying, and there's some clarity on here as well. So I think the lines of questioning, I think, are appropriate, and for the depth that we're going to, I think is appropriate. You know, it's a good firm, and we said it's a good firm. We've been with them for a long time. But I think it's our responsibility to understand what they're doing.
I think that's what we just.
And I think they've cared with that.
And I think that's what we did today.
Mhm.
Right. But we didn't do a cursory review. I think we did a good in-depth review, and I would continue that. We consider this as well. I had struggled a little bit too myself, just an audit committee, or just a finance committee, right? And we don't have an audit committee, so we're maybe going over a little of a line here, but who else is there to do it? If it's not us, are we just gonna take these and just say, hey, they've said nothing's here. We'll leave them based on whatever we looked at, and nothing's here, and let's move on.
I think we're at a point now that if in what you just said, you feel that way, that comes back to us as finance committee and make some decisions on if we should take this for another point, as opposed to looking at this and making a yes or no on what was presented to us. There's 2 pieces to this. You're saying you see more that needs to be, it may be the way that we, as our organization, as our group, need to look at this and determine if this is direction we should go, or if the one that we've been going, which is this is an audit, we look at it, it's a positive audit. Because remember, whatever we do here, this is going out to the public.
Exactly.
Okay, because having done this before, that's why when I did an audit before, we made sure that the language was such that the public could understand it. So, but the detail that you're talking about is a whole different ballgame, so that's something that we as a group need to discuss.
I agree, and again, understanding the scope, understanding the risk. They're not testing everything. In fact, we could have a situation where there are material weaknesses that have not been identified because they haven't looked at it.
That's always a possibility, absolutely.
Right. So do we understand that, what they looked at in this cycle? What did they look at last cycle? What should they look at next cycle? Should we do something in the interim because we have some kind of breach? Should we then look at another area and consider that to be more active?
But we have to consider how much detail we are going to get into this and how much of that is our role.
Well, I think there might be a couple of different, one of them is how did the audit go and what were the results, and the second thing is how deep do we want to understand auditing process? I think I heard, and Kayla, I apologize, I think it was you that was saying that you do have the ability to do a presentation for a committee like this that would get into more how an audit works and what's looked at and more of that structure, not the actual results of a specific audit. But I would be,
Correct.
if that's something that the committee would like to do, I would be very happy personally to sit in and listen to that. But I do think we're reviewing a particular audit that was just completed. And I feel like, we had a good audit, and I feel good about kind of where we are here. But I do see those as maybe being 2 separate things, and not, Calvin, nothing I said was negative on any of your questions. It was just more of trying to separate, understanding in detail, how much detail do we want to understand it and how an audit works versus what was this particular audit.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm of the latter, not the former. I think I understand. I know how it works. I just have questions as a result of what I'm reading. And these are not, these are typical, I think, of what you would find in any audit committee, any of a board of any corporation.
So I do have noted
They
on
were
here
good
of,
questions. Very
of
good
narrative
questions.
on processes
Mhm.
of, you know, that they did all the cash disbursements one by one. Like, do you want them to actually like have that steps written out of what makes them like flag things and stuff like that? Is that what you're looking for?
Or-
Okay. So I can work with the auditors for that.
But outside of this review of the audit, with the questions, the changes that they're gonna put in, I don't think are
Just those two
Huge.
pages.
right, and a couple edits.
Oh yeah, and the couple edits that you added.
I think that we could. I'd feel comfortable recommending this to the board. Once we're gonna get, what's the timeline of getting back the, I don't know, the final corrected? However you want.
That would be a question for them, but after I get the next iteration of the draft, I can email it out to everybody. And just if there's any other questions or comments, I can probably do that through email instead of having a whole nother meeting.
Right,
And then I'll say keep it open for a week. And then if there's no questions or comments, then just report back that this is the draft form going out to the board.
okay. And Kayla, what is the timeline for getting a revised report, which presumably won't have the draft on it, or will it have the draft on it? Until.
So it will still have the draft. The draft doesn't actually come off until the day we issue. And to get to that point, we'll need to make sure, like Kim said, you guys had sufficient time to re-review that second draft. We'll need to do some update procedures. So we update your board minutes all the way through issuance. We'll get some check registers and look at some subsequent receipts, make sure nothing has to be disclosed. We'll need a management's representation letter from Kim, which is basically just confirming that we got all the documents we asked for. She's not aware of anything that needs to be disclosed in addition to the financial statements. And once we have all of that information, then we can actually date your report and issue it as final. But we should be able, in terms of flipping those changes you requested today, we should be able to flip that back to you relatively shortly.
So with every reiteration, they do ask for like updated information about our board meeting minutes and our check registers.
Okay, which is just pro forma.
Yep.
You know, it's not, oh, we get, you know, we don't know where they are. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So we, if the result is, well, is, now that we've finished, is Bob still there and is he ready to share comments?
Bob, do you have any comments?
Still here.
Any comments?
No?
No comment.
Alrighty.
Okay,
So once they reissue, I'm gonna send out an email and
Mm-hmm.
then I'll keep it open for a week. Is that good for everybody?
Yeah.
A week?
because we want, yep, our target is to make a recommendation to the board for the August board meeting, which is third week or fourth week in August, or when you
It's
want.
the
date.
fourth Wednesday. I am on vacation,
Right,
these following 2 weeks. If it has to be pushed to the September board meeting, that is okay, because we're still in our 6 months. That's our requirement, is 6 months from the end of fiscal year.
but,
So, but yes, we are shooting for August.
okay,
So what's probably gonna happen is that I'm gonna have an email and I'm gonna attach other people on it. And and then, as long as there's no additional comments, then they'll attach it to the agenda for approval.
All right,
All right.
any further discussion for amendments, future topics? One of the topics is the reassessment of the administrative allocations. Another is a draft of the investment policy.
And Kim, I need to get you my comments on that.
And I think that's a large enough.
I think so.
Unless anybody else has anything that can be on the agenda and we get to it, and then otherwise.
Right.
And it's okay to just mail an idea. Any other comments or questions? For Kayla or anybody at the auditors?
I would suggest that next time, Kayla, that I think we would benefit if your presence were here.
Absolutely, we can do the meeting in person.
Yeah, I would strongly suggest that. I think.
So that came from me, that I told them that virtual would be fine.
Oh, okay, that's good.
That wasn't their decision.
Okay.
It was very helpful. Thank you, Kayla and Elizabeth and.
Kim fell off, but.
You okay?
Yeah.
Sorry, she had to jump into another meeting, but absolutely, if you guys have any questions or concerns in the interim, Kim has our contact information. Please feel free to reach out.
Okay. Thank you very much, all of you. Anybody here have any other questions, comments, concerns?
Make a
Bob?
motion,
There's nothing more to say? Okay.
motion that we close our meeting.
We have a second?
Nothing. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the time is 11:39.
Thank you.